If you want to know what Pharaoh's voice sounds like, and Pharaoh's voice is completely misaligned from how a Jewish person should think, it sounds like prioritize your own spiritual well-being. In Pasuk, the Pasuk that says, "Vayomer le melech Mitzrayim," the king of Egypt said to Moshe and Aaron, "Lama Moshe v'Aaron tafrias ami ma'asov." Why, Moshe and Aaron, are you interfering with the people's work? Lechu lesiv lo seichem, go to your jobs. Zayin Chazal medayek. Chazal say, look at what it says over here. It's a medrash. V'bal there is Moshe lechu lesiv lo seichem. The fact that it doesn't just say don't interfere with their work, but it says you go to your responsibilities, with the emphasis on yours. That means that Pharaoh is not telling them to go do the work that the other Jews are doing, or to carry the burden that the other Jews are carrying, from Pasuk gleich noch dem, which is about to be described. Pharaoh is not telling Moshe and Aaron to go and lug stones together with other Jews. That illustrates that Moshe and Aaron were exempt from that labor. And by extension, the entire Shevet Levi was exempt from the hard labor of the slavery in Mitzrayim. The Ramban is Mevoyer. The Ramban explains why that would be. Why would a despot like Pharaoh allow such a thing? So he explains, that it's common in every nation that they should have sages who teach them their heritage and their Torah. And the Pharaoh always getelt dem Shevet Levi und sie befreit von dem Shibut. That's what convinced Pharaoh to allow the Shevet Levi to be free of labor. Because they are the sages and elders of the Jewish people. Therefore, he was saying, what's Pharaoh telling Moshe and Aaron? Go to your jobs, Li Yisrael, which is to be responsible for the Jewish people. To the Arbeit von Lernen. Go back to your job, which is to learn on sein Meriteros in Sweden and be the guides to the rest of the Jewish people. In other words, Pharaoh, you could say, even has an invested interest over here, because he needs a healthy, wholesome labor force. So they've got to have their people who are going to inspire them and help them to focus, etc. Das heißt, in other words, as Pharaoh had geteinet to Moshe v'Aaron, basically what Pharaoh was telling Moshe and Aaron is, "Siz genug was ihr seid frei von Shibud Mitzrayim." You should be glad that you are exempt from the hard labor of Egypt. You have permission, you should be grateful, you have permission to learn Torah, and you have permission to teach Torah to the Jewish people. So why are you now interfering in how the rest live, in their circumstances? Why are you insisting that they should not behave in the way that is mandated by the rules of this country? Surely you should be grateful that it's good enough that they have you who can inspire them from time to time. Steht in Zohar. Now the Zohar tells us that the wisdom in Egypt was superior to anywhere else in the world. Not only then, the truth is even today, there's certain things we still don't understand about the Egyptians. And Pharaoh himself was a genius. Let's be honest. He might have been a tyrant, but he was a genius. So therefore, the Taina from Pharaoh is given a Taina was hot not in Seichel Ha'olam. What Pharaoh was saying over here is something that would make sense to the rational mind, which is, according to the natural process, there was no way for the Jews to escape Egypt. As we know famously, Chazal tell us, no slave ever escaped. Not only practically could they not escape, the fact that the Jews were slaves was something that had been defined by the Eibishter. The Eibishter told Avraham Avinu that his descendants would be slaves for 400 years. 400 years are not up yet. That was Pharaoh's point. Who do you think you are? You're going to interfere now with the natural order? On the Eibishter's drachim? You're going to interfere with what the Eibishter decided? Chutzpah. You go back to your role. You go learn your Torah. And allow life to take its course. This is what the Eibishter decided. Who do you think you are? So the response is, as agam es lechera atayna tzedekes. Well, it does sound like Pharaoh has a very powerful point. Is das aber is Pharaoh? But let's not forget who's speaking. It's Pharaoh speaking, which means it's fundamentally wrong. And let's assume we would have listened to Pharaoh's argument. We would have totally compromised the possibility of the Geula, which obviously was the objective of Moshe's job. As we know, the Geula had to be under extreme time pressure. Because had the Jews remained there even just the span of time that you blink your eyes, there would be no way out. The only reason the Geula happened was because the leadership, Moshe and Aaron, ignored what Pharaoh had to say. Yes, rationally, Pharaoh, you make a lot of sense, but you're wrong. Maybe in the world of the rational mind, what you're saying, Pharaoh, has validity. But we're talking about the Jewish people over here, who are not bound by the restrictions of what can be explained rationally or by the natural order of the world. Not only the physical, even the spiritual world. So therefore, regardless of the fact that there was a gezerah for 400 years of slavery, which is something that perhaps comes from a spiritual space, is the Geula given us freer? The fact is, we got out at just over halfway. In a way that the Eibusha completely skipped over the time frame. That's what happened. Pharaoh was wrong. As compelling as his argument was, it was wrong. Which teaches us a very profound lesson. The Ayro de Fun is, as Ayid Zol Nitrachter, no Jew should ever think, Ich lerne doch Torah. I'm going to learn Torah, because that's what I have to do as a Jewish person, is Ani es nafshi itzalti, and thereby I've saved myself. Put on my oxygen mask first. Aber frat, as ich gib noch von Zeit zu Zeit, a shir b'Torah Sandra. The truth is, I don't only care about myself. Occasionally, I give a shir to other people as well. Was is mir if I feel, but do I have to really start to concern myself with the nuanced reality of the next person? Is he doing mitzvahs, not doing mitzvahs? What's my business? Is he committed to the Eibusha with his own talents and abilities? Or is he a slave of Pharaoh, completely enslaved by materialism? Is it my problem? I get up, I give my share. Those who want to come, they'll listen, and finished. Now, if a person is completely involved in materialism without a sense of the divine spark within it, is as futile to pursue materialism without meaning, is as futile as building the cities of Pisam and Ramses, or Paroi, the cities of Paroi, as the Gemara Soita explains, Ramses was called that way because as they built a structure, so it collapsed, or shook. Pisam and Pisam was called that because that literally things fell into the ground. They're not sustainable structures. Materialism without meaning is not a sustainable reality. So darf man wissen sein, we have to know, as das gewinnt Ashkofen from Pharaoh Melech Mitzrayim, the person that says, I do my bit and please don't expect me to step out of line and help somebody or push somebody else because it's not my business. That is Pharaoh's attitude. Who said to Moshe and Aaron, you go back to your role. As long as you're learning Torah, you should be happy. Why are you so bothered by the behavior of another Jew? That somebody can say the Hanhoga von Eden, that's Pharaoh's attitude, it's not the way for a Jew to behave. Which is why Moshe and Aaron did not listen to what Pharaoh had to say. Let's compare it to, God forbid you saw a fire in the next person's house, another Jew's house. Nobody's going to sit back to make a whole elaborate calculation. Says, from fire. Should I or shouldn't I get involved to save his life from the fire? Or to make a whole calculation. Why should I get involved in somebody else's life? It's not my life. It's got nothing to do with me. Every person has their path. Was is gestellt von der Ashkocha ha'Elyona, which is divinely designed. I didn't choose that he should have a fire. The Eibishter chose that he should have a fire. Who am I to interfere? Who should I should get involved in the Eibishter's problem? I should call Hatzalah, I should call a fire department. I should try to help the guy out of his house. This is Pashut. It's absolutely clear. As anybody who sees that kind of crisis unfolding is not going to, if they're a healthy mind, if they're a healthy human, they're not going to sit there with this whole elaborate, calculation back and forth. Does it make sense? Or perhaps I have to follow a different opinion. Any normal human being will run to help. If that is a clear and obvious response when a person's physical here and now is being threatened, how much more so does there have to be an immediate response when a person is being threatened in the here and now and in the hereafter? You cannot afford to be rational. We'd have to do everything in our power to save the person from destruction. The Frierdiker Rebbe would quote the Baal Shem Tov as saying, as the chiyuv von Avas Yisrael, that the responsibility we have to love a fellow Jew, does not only apply to a Jew you know, but even to a Jew who knows where on the other end of the earth. On the Avadar of Zayin, and the love to that Jew who lives who knows where has to be not just love with some kind of parameters and rules of the game, nor to love them like yourself. Just like we love ourselves without restriction. And that's the kind of love we have to have another Jew. The Rebbe itself, the Frierdiker Rebbe also related as the Mezritch and Magid hat sich gewünschen, that the Magid of Mezritch used to wish as Halavai wollte gekusht die Sefer Torah, that he could kiss the Sefer Torah mit derselbe Ava v'chiba was the Rebbe the Baal Shem Tov had gehabt zu Ayidin, with a kind of love that the Baal Shem Tov had to another Jew. And the Rebbe had Moisif given b'shem Harav Magid, and then the Frierdiker Rebbe added also in the Magid's name, the Baal Shem Tov volt zayndik v'alma dain. If the Baal Shem Tov was still in this world, would have known how much impact he had by drawing Jews close, which of course he now in the next world appreciates. He would have done so much more, and in a whole different way. So for us, what does that mean? That the love for the fellow Jew, which is supposed to be like love for ourselves, has to express itself as geshem v'bayim alein kamoicha. Just like with regards to oneself, what would we want to do? Our role. That the person is in the space of learning, in the space of davening, mitzvahs, in the space of fulfilling mitzvahs. That's the impact you have to have on another Jew, that they live in the world of Torah and tefillah and mitzvahs. Seeing as we know the Eibishter does not make unfair demands on us. And that means we are completely empowered to succeed in doing this. But the lesson we have to remember from the story of the Geulas Mitzrayim is we cannot delay it, not a week, not a day, not even the blink of an eye. Weil es ist recht, als der Herr Feines machriat Zimmer soll bleiben in Golus Chas V'Sholem, oder man soll ausgelesen werden und bis Begula Shleima. Because as the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim illustrates, the blink of an eye could be the distinction between getting out of Golus or Chas V'Sholem not. Das der Rav was in der Gertzial was seine Baula Shel Torah. And therefore, this has a practical lesson for every person who's engaged in Torah learning, which is inclusive of Koil Tamidei HaYeshivas, those who are sitting in yeshiva, or any Jewish person who's in the illuminated reality of living a wholesome Jewish life. The moment we recognize that another Jew's spirituality is not as it should be. It's not illuminated as much as it should be. Zomen sich nicht einreden, as ani es nafshi hitzalti. We dare not convince ourselves it's not my problem, I'm looking after me. Especially when you consider, like the Arizal tells us, that the entire Jewish world is essentially one organism. Is Bashas's felt shlemus and Torah mitzvahs by its fate in Eden. If there's another Jew who is lacking in his Torah mitzvahs, felt das by Imun by Allah Eden, then I'm lacking in Torah mitzvahs, and every Jew is lacking in Torah mitzvahs. Torah sagt wegen Eden, we see this illustrated elsewhere in Torah, where the Torah tells us about the Jewish people. You all stand together in front of the Eibishter. Going from the leaders, all the way to the wood choppers and the water carriers. If you had to have a military parade inspection in front of the king, is der Seder als einer von den Poster-Soldaten hat nicht wie Geherrig ausgeputzt die Knöpfe von seinem Munde. If you have a simple soldier, a private in the army, who didn't polish the buttons on his uniform the way that he was supposed to, not only is that soldier disciplined, the main person who's going to be under pressure is going to be the commanding officer. Why did you not train your soldiers to know how you stand in front of a king? It's his responsibility. The professional's responsibility. It's the frum Jew's responsibility, the fact that another Jew may not be doing what they should in the way that they should. We have to know that as we stand all in front of the Eibishter, there's not only a demand and expectation from the simple people, the wood choppers and the water carriers. The main people who are under pressure and have to answer for their behavior are the leaders. And it's not going to be an acceptable answer to say, sorry, I was busy with my own spiritual development. When the Jewish people do behave like a single organism, where each part of the organism is responsible and cares about the other, all Jews in unison, from top to bottom, from leaders to water carriers. Then, like we say in the davening on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we all stand like a single bound reality. Then we'll all be able to reach the point to fulfill the Eibishter's will with a full heart. In our unity will bring the unity of the Eibishter in the world, the oneness of Hashem in the world, the realization of Hashem's oneness in the world. And that will happen with Mashiach, which should happen immediately. Mitzvah Hashem.